Berlin has a vacancy rate of 0.3%. Let that sink in. For every 1,000 apartments in this city, only 3 are empty. A functioning housing market needs at least 20. What you are looking at right now is not a housing shortage. It is a housing emergency, and almost nobody outside Germany is paying attention to it. But here is why you should care, even if you have never set foot in Berlin. Because what is happening in this city is a blueprint, a template, a stress test for what urban housing markets look like when supply collapses, population grows, and politics fails to respond in time. And right now, cities from Amsterdam to Auckland are quietly following the same path. This is the story of how Berlin broke its own housing market and what it means for yours. To understand the crisis, you need to understand what made Berlin different. For most of the 20th century, Berlin was 2 cities. After reunification in 1990, the eastern half was flooded with empty apartments, a legacy of decades of population decline and communist-era construction. Rents were absurdly cheap. Artists moved in. Clubs opened in abandoned warehouses. Berlin became the capital of affordable cool. In 2008, you could rent a 2-bedroom apartment in Mitte for 400 euros a month. That era is over. Since 2010, Berlin's population has grown by more than 500,000 people. The city now has 3.9 million inhabitants, and it keeps growing. Students, tech workers, international arrivals, remote workers, priced out of London and Amsterdam. Every one of those people needs somewhere to live. And here is the problem. Berlin barely built anything to accommodate them. In the same period that 500,000 new residents arrived, the city completed only around 159,000 new apartments. That is less than 1 apartment for every 3 new residents. The math simply does not work. And it is getting much worse every year, not better. Building permits in Berlin peaked in the early 2020s. By 2024, they had crashed to just 9,772 new units, an 8-year low. The city would need at least 20,000 new apartments per year just to keep up with demand. Why is no one building? Because it no longer makes financial sense. Construction costs in Germany rose by over 40% between 2020 and 2024. Interest rates jumped from near zero to over 4%. And Berlin's complex planning bureaucracy means it takes an average of 7 years from planning application to completion. Let me give you 2 examples from my own company. In 2022, we were set to completely renovate a ground floor unit in Charlottenburg. 419 square meters of stripped out pre-war shell, completely gutted, ready for a full build-out. Then post-COVID material costs hit. Window prices alone had risen so sharply that the entire budget no longer worked. The investor had to cancel the project. Not because the demand wasn't there, because the numbers simply stopped making sense. At another construction project on the southern edge of the city, we were contracted to add a completely new and additional floor and an external staircase extension to an existing building, 115 square meters. This wasn't anything unusual or experimental. What should have been a routine process to get the building permit alone took 5 years. 5 years before even the construction signs could go up. We are building it now as we speak, but 5 years is what it takes in this city just to get permission to start. This is one of the first things developers and investors look at and immediately get spooked. Regulation keeps increasing, and permitting offices across the city are chronically understaffed. Both only add fuel to the fire. Here is something most people outside Germany do not know about. Berlin has 2 rental markets running in parallel. If you are lucky enough to have an existing lease signed years ago under the Mietspiegel rent index, you might be paying 7 or 8 euros per square meter. That's roughly 560 euros for a 70 square meter apartment. But if you are looking for a new apartment today, you are looking at 15 to 16 euros per square meter on average. In Prenzlauer Berg or Kreuzberg, easily 20 euros or more. The gap between existing tenants and new renters has reached 40%, and it is widening every year. This is not a market. This is a lottery. And the people who lose are the ones who move, students, young families, anyone starting over. But there is one more group worth talking about. The people who never lose this lottery at all. Let me tell you about a friend of mine. She moved from the US to Berlin in spring 2024, relocated by her employer to work with an important client here. Her company put her up in a hotel for the first 4 weeks. Then she had to find her own apartment, and find it fast. Her new colleagues in the Berlin office did what Berliners do. They warned her. Good luck. You will never find anything that quickly. The market here is brutal. She called me in a slight panic. I asked her one question. What's your budget? Her answer was, quote, well, ideally, I wouldn't want to pay more than I did for my studio apartment back in Charlotte, North Carolina. That number was $4,250 a month, all costs included, back in 2024. With that budget, she had a stunning 126 square meter top floor apartment in a pre-war building in the heart of Prenzlauer Berg within days. She still lives there today. And here's the part that genuinely surprised her. Under Berlin's existing tenant protections, her rent has gone up by about 60 euros a year since she moved in. Coming from the American rental market, where a 60 euro annual increase would be considered a rounding error, she was almost positively shocked. Her Berlin colleagues, who warned her she'd never find anything, were first shocked she found something so fast, then borderline jealous when they found out where, for how much, and how little it's changed since. This is not really a story about luck. It's a story about exchange rates and timing. Because for a Berlin renter earning a Berlin salary today, an apartment like that is essentially out of reach. But for an American salary converted into euros, arriving at exactly the right moment, Berlin still looked almost affordable, and once you're in, the existing tenant system protects you from ever finding out what the market actually costs now. The city center is quietly becoming a market for people who do not actually live on a Berlin income. And once they're in, the same rent protections built for long-term locals end up protecting them too. So who benefits from all of this? Existing landlords, obviously. If you bought an apartment in Berlin in 2015 for 3,000 euros per square meter, you are now sitting on an asset worth 5,000 to 6,000. Your rent income has roughly doubled. You did nothing except wait. Institutional investors too, though interestingly, large portfolio holders like state-owned housing companies charge some of the lowest rents in the city. The worst actors tend to be private landlords with a handful of units and no regulatory accountability. And the city government itself has collected billions in property transfer tax as transactions boomed, while failing to build the social housing it promised. Everyone at the table got something, except the people who needed a place to live on a local income. Berlin is not unique. It is just further along the curve. London has a vacancy rate under 1%, and the same dynamic from my friend's story played out there a decade earlier, when London's center quietly filled with international money while local incomes could no longer compete. Amsterdam has introduced a lottery system for social housing with waiting lists of 15 years. In Sydney and Auckland, planning laws have made it nearly impossible to build enough density in the areas where people actually want to live. The pattern is always the same. A city becomes desirable. More people arrive than housing can accommodate. Construction fails to keep up because of costs, regulations, political opposition from existing homeowners who do not want new buildings in their neighborhood. Rents rise. The people who built the culture that made the city desirable get pushed out. Eventually, the center belongs mostly to whoever holds the strongest currency, not whoever has lived there longest. Berlin is just the case study that has played out most clearly, partly because it started from such an extreme position of abundance and fell so far, so fast. So is there a solution? Berlin has tried several, but ultimately ends up just kicking the can further down the road. The famous Mietendeckel, rent cap, was introduced in 2020 and struck down by Germany's constitutional court in 2021. It worked while it lasted, but it also caused a collapse in available listings as landlords withdrew apartments from the market. The city is now experimenting with other tools: accelerated planning approvals, subsidies for affordable new construction, tighter controls on short-term rentals. Building permits in 2025 rose to around 14,000, up from the 2024 low, but still far below what is needed. The honest answer is, there is no quick fix. It took 30 years to create this shortage. It will take at least a decade to meaningfully address it, and only if the political will exists to build at scale, in density, in the places where people want to live. Berlin used to be proof that a major city could be both desirable and affordable. That proof is gone. What's left exposed is something more structural, a system that rarely creates the right incentives for investors and ordinary residents at the same time. What remains is a city that is still fascinating, still magnetic, but increasingly only accessible to those who arrived early, those who can pay, or those earning a paycheck from somewhere else entirely. And the cities, watching from the sidelines, telling themselves their situation is different, that it will not happen here. Next up are not just cities in Eastern Europe playing catch-up, but several in Southern Europe already undergoing this same exact process. They are looking at Berlin in 2010 and not seeing what came next. I'm interested in what you think. Is your city following the same path? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.